Hey everyone. I decided to jump on here and make this video, um, and just talk about, things I have learned since getting my genetic, diagnosis recently of a CACNA1A disorder. Um, and talk about a few things I have recently learned about, having a CACNA1A disorder. Um, so yeah, that's what I want to talk about. So one thing I learned about the gene, and mutations within the gene, is that it is associated with many different things. Many different neurological symptoms. I specifically have episodic ataxia type 2. However, having the CACNA1A disorder, which is what I have, covers a whole bunch of neurological and neurodevelopmental conditions. So it's associated with non-progressive ataxia, congenital ataxia, episodic ataxia type 2, an adult onset progressive spinocerebellar ataxia type 6. It's associated with hypotonia, which is low muscle tone, developmental delays as an infant, not reaching your milestones on time. It's associated with autism spectrum disorder. It's associated with intellectual disability, learning disorders. It's associated with um, epilepsy and seizures, and eye movement conditions, and a lot of other things like that. So it's associated with a lot of different things. So yeah. The other thing I learned about CACNA1A disorders is that the very first awareness day was on March 19th, 2021. This was exciting to me because having a mutation of having episodic ataxia type 2 within the CACNA1A gene, it never ever had an awareness day. So this was really like exciting for me to know that now, that CACNA1A disorders have an awareness day now. So I always felt personally like there has been a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, not a whole lot of attention and awareness, um, and not a lot of knowledge surrounding episodic ataxia type 2. Like, it seemed like it was just not being made to be a big deal, like some other types of ataxias that are not associated with CACNA1A. And so, yeah, that's another thing I learned. I was so excited to know that there was an awareness day now. Another thing I learned about CACNA1A disorders is that um, they The disorders are associated with things like developmental disabilities, spinocerebellar ataxia type 6, also known as SCA6, episodic ataxia type 2, hemiplegic migraine. I learned that these disorders can display symptoms across categories. So, for instance, I tested positive for having episodic ataxia type 2. Even though I have episodic ataxia type 2, according to my genetic testing and what came back, I display symptoms of having symptoms similar to the other disorders, like hemiplegic migraine. Some individuals with episodic ataxia type 2 have symptoms that reminiscent to hemiplegic migraine that are very, very much similar, and they experience similar things. For instance, during attacks or episodes in episodic ataxia type 2, individuals tend to experience migraine and paralysis affecting one side of the body. These are things that people that have hemiplegic migraine also tend to experience. Another example is that people with spinocerebellar ataxia type 6 and CACNA1A can have initial symptoms that are very similar and much like episodic ataxia type 2, where the individual may experience episodic features early on in the disease before it becomes progressive. But the thing is with SCA6 is that it's an adult onset disorder. And that is mostly how you distinguish the two between episodic ataxia type 2, which is childhood onset, and SCA6, which is an adult onset. And even though episodic ataxia type 2 can develop cerebellar atrophy, which can in time become progressive. The cerebellum in the back of the brain can shrink over time. People with episodic ataxia type 2 is primarily associated with the episodic symptoms, while people with SCA6 primarily are associated with the progressive symptoms. So there's a difference, but there's a bit of a overlap in the symptoms between having the two. So that I find very interesting. Now, a lot of people that have a CACNA1A can have a combination of symptoms, such as individuals with episodic ataxia type 2 can also have epilepsy, seizures, and developmental delays, intellectual disability, and things like that. Another thing I learned about having a CACNA1A disorder is that they can be serious conditions. Now, I've read in the past, before I had my genetic confirmation, is that episodic attacks is not said to be serious. You read about it, and it doesn't sound like it's made to be a big deal or that it's a serious condition, though it's very debilitating and disabling. And even a lot of sources online tend to not make it that big of a deal of how disabling it can get. But it truly is. Now, CACNA1A disorders, depending on what you're going through or what disorder you have associated with the CACNA1A mutation you got, can cause life-threatening emergencies. That I did learn. They can cause drug-resistant epilepsy. They can cause very serious seizures and hemiplegic migraine episodes that tend to require hospital stays and things like that. So that's another thing I had learned about having the CACNA1A disorder. And like I said before, is that sometimes the symptoms overlap with the condition that you got. Um, Even though you have a different disorder from, let's say, hemiplegic migraine, you can have similar symptoms very much like hemiplegic migraine. So, anyways, that's another thing I learned about it. Um, Another thing is that might have covered everything. I don't know. Let me think a minute. That's the majority of it. Hmm. One thing I learned about having a CACNA1A disorder is that it affects you physically and cognitively. Some people say like the type of like ataxia does just affects you physically and not cognitively. Well, this is true in some ataxias like Friedreich's ataxia. This does not apply to all types depending on what gene and mutations are associated with your type of ataxia. So mine affects me both cognitively and physically. I have trouble retaining information. I have trouble with my memory. I have trouble learning. I have intellectual disability. I've had prior diagnosis of autism spectrum and things like that. Also, it's just can be associated. Many individuals have neurodevelopmental disabilities. So it often starts when you're young and you're having trouble reaching your developmental milestones, such as learning how to walk, learning how to talk, and things like that, which is often associated with CACNA1A disorders. Um, those are the basic important things I wanted to go over on what I specifically had learned about having the CACNA1A disorder since I got my genetic test results back. Um, and yeah, I'm making this video in hopes to maybe you'll probably learn something from it too, about the things I had learned in regards to having it. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you all have a good day, and I will see you soon. Bye now.